Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It has been a long time since I've sat down and filmed. So much has happened. If you guys follow me on Instagram, then y'all already know why. A huge reason I've been gone. If not, just you'll find out eventually if you keep watching this video. If you're new here, my name is Valentine. So much has changed, and I'm just going to talk about where I've been and what's been going on and what my plans were and just everything that happened in the last year, because it's been kind of crazy. So much has happened. I honestly don't even feel like the same person. Yeah, let's just go ahead and begin. And I have a feeling this is going to be like a really long video. Y'all know the drill. Relax, get comfy, grab a treat, maybe something delicious to drink. I've been gone for a hot minute. So one of the last videos I posted was talking about 2023 and how I felt that it would be a good year for spirituality, higher purpose, and divinity. And it really was, for me at least. I definitely called it for myself. After I posted that video, I did take my spirituality a lot more seriously. And I should also say that the year before, when I got married, I had applied to become a priestess for a deity that I worked with for like 5 years. She was very important to me. She's still very important to me. And I applied to take priestess training. It was like a 6-month intensive. Did not get it. I applied for a scholarship program, being a home caregiver for my mother. I didn't really have the funds to just like drop a couple $1,000s on a priestess training course. And so I didn't get it, and it ended up being good because I did not know how much was going to go into my wedding, like how much time and energy was going to go into wedding planning. Now, a year had passed since the initial application to become a priestess, or at least take the training to become a priestess, and you see at the end of it whether or not you think that priestess kind of level of devotion is really for you. And my mom Mama Moon was like, you know, it's coming up, it's here. I got an email saying like, it's that time of year again. If you are wanting to enroll, like now is the time. You've got like a 1-week window, write an essay about like who you are, why you deserve a scholarship, and like your relationship with this deity. It was really intense. It was very academic. The priestess that runs the program is actually finishing up her doctorates in Irish Celtic paganism and women's studies. She's honestly amazing. She treats her course very much like a college accredited kind of thing, you know? And so I had to apply, and then the part where like some witchiness comes in is she would dwindle down the applicants and then use divination for the 2 applicants that got full scholarships. My mom was like, do it, you know, like this might be your year. And I was really reluctant. I was like, you know, I really want to focus on my YouTube channel. I was like, I really want to like take it seriously. There were other things that I thought about, like, you know, maybe I could take like some art classes. Maybe I could do like these types of classes. And my mom was like, no, like you've been wanting to take this class. You should do it. And so I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to apply, because like, what's the harm in just applying? And I thought, you know, if it's meant to be, I'll get it. If it's not meant to be, like, no big deal. A couple of weeks go by for that whole thing, and during that time, the goddess that I worked with, who was gonna take this priestess training for, she is like she's a dark goddess, okay? She is a hardcore, not to be like casually working with type of goddess. Like she's pretty intense, and one of her domains is death. During that time, I had discovered being a death doula, death workers. I felt really, really called to like wanting to be a death doula. And then I started looking into it. I spoke with this lady and I was going to do an apprenticeship with her. And the next thing you know, I got a notification that my application for this Priestess program was accepted. I was blown away. I could not believe probably over 100 people applied for that scholarship. Like, I have no idea. I know there was over 100 people just in my class alone, like in my graduating class, but so I have no idea. I have no idea how many people actually applied, but I got in. I instantly started crying, and it was really weird. Like, I opened up my email, I saw that I got it, and I just burst into tears. And I know that I was really wanting this. Like, you know, I knew it was important to me. So you might be thinking, like, it makes sense that you would cry, right? But I don't know. It was weird. I'm not an easy crier unless, you know, it's that type of month. And then I'm bawling on like commercials and stuff all the time. I don't know. This was just it was a little weird. And I just felt like it was something big. Like, I just remembered thinking like, oh my gosh, like this is going to change my life. I think at the time I was thinking like, I'm going to become a priestess, right? Like, that was kind of the trajectory that I thought that was taking me on. And my mom, I remember telling my mom, and she was sitting right there, and I was just like, oh my God, like we were in the middle of a conversation when I got the email, and I was like, I got it. And I just started crying, and she was like, why are you crying? And I was like, I don't know. It just wouldn't stop. And I just kept saying like, I feel like this is really big. She started crying with me, but my mom is like a sympathetic crier, right? She starts crying with me, and she was like, it feels big. Like, you're right. Like, it does feel very big. Maybe this is what I'm meant to do. And like, I'm lining up on my path. Like, it felt bigger than normal. It felt bigger than me. It felt bigger than just like a class. I got super serious. I bought a bunch of pens, notebooks and highlighters, you know, like, where's my office supply ghouls at? Because I love that stuff. Really excited. And I had this like newfound exuberance. I haven't been in a classroom setting since I left college, which was like 7 years ago. And I took college later in life. So I jumped headfirst into the program. The more I worked with it, the more I studied. People who work with this goddess, you know, definitely end up working for like social work, justice, equality, like a lot of like fighting, a lot of like warrior type stuff in like a modern sense, fighting for equal rights, women's rights, any minority, anybody who's being oppressed. A lot of people tend to feel that call. And I was like, you know, I'm definitely on that side, but I'm not someone who's very raw. I don't know. I don't know. I always get very intimidated by stuff like that. It just doesn't fit me. While that was happening, you know, the lady that I spoke with about becoming a death doula reached out, and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do it because I would have had to leave the state, stay with her for 2 weeks, but I would have had to pay for my own room and board in a different state. Like, that's a lot of money. And while that apprenticeship would have been amazing, and she's someone I highly respect, I was like, I can't do that right now, especially I'm like in a priestess training and that's a lot of money and blah, blah, blah. She was like, just let me know if you ever want to. And she was like, you know, I've got a good vibe that this would be like a good fit for you. And I was like, you know, I really am drawn to being a death doula. I just kept coming back to that. And finally I started looking at my goddess that I was working with, training to be a priestess of, and how she is very like psychopompish. Like, she very much helps leads souls, kind of what a death doula is doing, and is in alignment with this goddess 100%. And so I started kind of seeing these elements. I could be doing this death doula work with her guidance, right? Like, I could see it, and it was just like kind of adding up. Kind of got like really amped to take courses that were more esoteric or like occult in nature. There was this type of reiki that I'd never heard of called Sekhem. I decided that I wanted to look into that. That teacher, before you get accepted for the scholarship, we have to have a one-on-one interview. So we did a Skype interview, and I told her, you know, like, I'm working with this death deity and I'm like becoming a priestess potentially. That's what I'm working towards, but I'm really drawn to being a death doula. And the moment I said that, her eyes just like shot open, and she was like, it is so weird that you say that. And she said that she offers death doula specific Reiki courses for people who are dying, and like the different types of energetic healing for people who are passing, and helping aid them in their transition. and she does like a death rites across the world type of cultural training. She only offers it when there's people, like enough people showing interest in it. She said she hadn't offered that class in like 2 or 3 years, but for some reason this year she had 4 other students talking about it. So she ran a poll and there was like 12 women who wanted to take it. So she decided to offer it that year. Immediately she was like, this is for you. It's 2 in alignment. And I was like, awesome. Just felt really affirming. I am now a second Reiki level 1 and level 2 practitioner. The Priestess training class I ate up because I love dense, dry material. The drier the better. I'm like, oh my God, these are ancient texts back from blah blah blah, and it makes me feel like really legit and authentic. I eat it up. I'm like, give me all the knowledge, right? But with my Reiki teacher, it was just, I learned things about me. I had to face a lot of me, which was good, but I wasn't expecting it. That class made me have to speak up. It made me have to like use my voice. It made me have to use my intuition, my psychic gifts. It made me have to out loud say, this is what you're experiencing on like a psychic and spiritual level. I was terrified. I was terrified of like someone being like, that is so on, like off the mark, like you're so fucking wrong. You know, like I was so scared. It was nerve-wracking, especially to do that in front of a bunch of other students that I didn't know. Like looking dumb. And I felt like I was gonna look really dumb. And the amount of times that I was eerily spot on, it was like such a slap in the face. And also there were so many moments that I didn't say things. I just really self-monitor healing or counseling or whatever. Oh, and that's another thing. I shouldn't say I'm a healer because my teacher was very adamant that she hates when people are like, oh, I'm a healer, because really what it is we're just a channel for something much greater than us to do the healing. And I very much resonated with that message. You know, a lot of these spiritual people can get like really big egos. I'm enlightened, like I'm a healer, let me lay my hands on you, you know. No, like you have to let the ego go. You have to step aside as an actual person. And I did like a bunch of channeling and let that energy channel through me. And so, yeah, anyways, like I was saying, there was like moments where I wouldn't say things. I thought it was either too personal or I thought it was going to sound dumb or whatever. And then they'd be like, oh, and then this happened. And I'm like, I fucking knew it. I had that in my head and I didn't say it. And it just really made me grow, forced me to look at myself. Why do I doubt myself so much? I was very self-limiting. I still am. It's still something that I very much struggle with. The lack of confidence in my abilities is just, why? Like, why? I've been a practicing witch for like, no shit, 23 years. You know, I've been doing tarot for 24, 25 years. And I'm over here like, nah, I would never be able to tell if he has foot problems. You know what I mean? And like, what are the odds that this dude's got some foot problems? And he totally had foot problems. I also felt like he was having issues like using his voice, and apparently he was having a lot of marital problems and he felt like he was never allowed to express himself. And there was like so many things just added up, and it wasn't just with him, it was with multiple people, like patrons. That class was very interesting. And also taking so many different courses really taught me what type of teaching style works best for me as well, and what I really appreciate and what I maybe don't so much appreciate. While I was doing my Reiki class, I remembered there's this store, this like really witchy store that had witchy classes occasionally. I was now on like a class kick, right? I'm like eating up all this stuff. Decided to look into it, and I found that there was this tarot reader that I'd always kind of been drawn to. She always just, I don't know, she just had this good energy. Like she always just looked like someone personable that I would want to be friends with, right? I don't know. And I thought like if I was going to learn any type of divinatory stuff because I've been practicing divination for so long. I've always been very like selective. Like if I'm going to do that, it would really have to be someone that I resonated with, and I felt like I really resonated with her. She had her own school, basically an academy, and I checked it out. I saw that she was offering a class to learn to become a medium. With my Reiki class and like her instilling this like channeling notion, opening myself up, I just really enjoyed that feeling, just enjoyed that work. I'm really into channeling right now. I was like, I think I want to take this class too. I just kind of went really hard, you guys. I kind of connected being like a death doula and working with people who are dying and being able to talk to their guides or sense ancestors that are with them, would be able to help alleviate a lot of the stress maybe that people might be experiencing while they pass. So that was kind of the mindset that I was like, this mediumship class might be really good for me. And then I saw that if you paid a little extra, you could do an in-person seance at a Victorian mansion in Colorado with this teacher live with a bunch of past alumni from either your class or the classes from the years prior. It was like a 3-day like weekend kind of thing. Hell yes. So I talked to Honey Buns because it was going to be our 1-year anniversary, and we had wanted to go on like a trip, and it was literally lining up like right around the same time. Spend like a week in Colorado after I take this 3-day mediumship seance thing. And he was like, yeah, for sure. We had so much fun. It was so beautiful. Colorado's so beautiful. I think it was like a 13-hour drive. So I end up taking this mediumship training class, and it was kind of along the same vein from my Reiki class. It was my teacher, she wasn't as on the spot as my Reiki teacher was, which I really appreciated. She was like, privately message me any feelings, thoughts, vibes that you're getting, because we did a lot of like spirit photography sessions. We did a bunch of psychic awareness and like checking in with ourselves and trying to distinguish which of our clairs was the strongest. Really appreciated that she wasn't always putting us on blast and being like, what are the vibes that you got from this? She would have us privately message her the feelings that we were getting. So it was just easier to say, this is what I'm picking up on. It was just crazy, you guys, like crazy. And the amount of times I didn't say, like, even if it was a private message, the amount of times I didn't speak to her because I was still like, I'll probably just get it wrong. Confidence, man. Confidence is something I desperately need to work on. That class was amazing. I don't know. If anything, if y'all are watching this and y'all are interested in taking any type of like occult esoteric class, do your research before you just sign up for one. Make sure it's someone that you respect or is known somehow, some way, like, or someone you know has taken a class from them. Because these classes were very affirming for me and really made me look at myself and be like, why are you doubting yourself? You know, like literally you're having so many things slammed in your face all the time. Why are you doubting yourself? As this was happening, I was finally like, you know what? I'm going to do my death doula class. Like, it was still with me, it had been with me for over a year before that point, with me the entire time I'm doing this stuff. So I decided I was just going to pull the trigger and sign up. I really wanted to take it seriously. You don't have to be licensed to be a death doula, though I do highly recommend doing some type of training or apprenticeship if that is something that you are interested in, because the hands-on is just so beneficial. If you're going to learn from someone, make sure it's someone who has that hands-on experience. I found someone that I wasn't going to take her class because she wasn't the most expensive. And for some reason in my mind, I was like, the more expensive, the better. Something just kept pulling me back to her and pulling me back to her website, feeling that she is the one. Like, she is the one. Everybody needs someone to hold the container of grief. She went more in depth about like what she offered with that and like how to deal with people with dementia and Alzheimer's. And again, those were all very important to me. And she talked about like different grief rituals. So it made me feel, okay, this is like a safe environment. Not all death doulas will do witchy things, right? So I felt, okay, this is like a safe environment for me too. I just decided to go with her. And I don't know. I think it was just from reading things, and I just had this vibe. I can't stress how amazing she was or how amazing she is. My life was forever changed meeting her, and I'm just so grateful to have had her as my teacher. She's a phenomenal human being. So before I knew all that, I signed up for her class, and I had been like wrapping up my Priestess program with my death goddess, and I decided that I was feeling really drawn all of a sudden, like during that Priestess training with this one particular death goddess that I'd been working with for like 5 years. This other death goddess kind of came through, and I don't know, it was just really strong. She is even more associated with burying souls, helping lost souls, death, and liminal spaces, and all that stuff. I was wrapping up the Priestess training. I'd already finished the Reiki, but I had my death Reiki classes still coming up. I had finished my mediumship training, but the weekend in-person seance was coming up, and that's when I enrolled for my death doula class. I go to this mediumship training, and I'd already felt the presence of this other goddess with me. I went to my favorite witchy store that's in Colorado. She's the patron goddess of that store, the one that was like kind of creeping in like, hello, Valentine. So when I went to that store, like I just saw these beautiful statues of her and these offerings of her and offerings to her. They had these beautiful devotional candles to her that I'd been like really wanting for a while, because this goddess had always kind of been someone that I felt like drawn to. I had a pretty fucking freaky experience when I called on her the first time. Not gonna lie, I saw a tiny silhouette of a child in my bedroom at night blocking the TV when Netflix was loading, and it scared the living shit out of me. And then later on, an owl showed up and started hooting outside of my window. A fucking owl? It was weird, and I looked it up. It was a great horned owl. Like, of all the owls, like the biggest, baddest motherfucker shows up and it's like outside my bedroom window, and I got like Mama Moon, and I was like, Mom, it's like, dude, this is not just me. Like, you hear that fucking owl, right? And she's like, shit, yeah, I do. And we're like looking out the fucking window, and there's just this great horned owl out there. It was hooting so loud, it woke up Honey Buns from a dead sleep, and he like came in the living room and was like, there's an owl outside. And I'm like, what are the odds that I'm like, I'm gonna see if this goddess wants to reach out to me? And this owl shows up, and I saw a creepy ass child-sized shadow figure in my bedroom. I had a feeling that was her. So that was my story, right? So I'd had those vibes. Going into this seance, I visited the store. I saw her statues. I saw her devotional candles. I felt her energy like super strong. We're doing mediumship, spirit communication. She's very much divination and mediumship and spirit ferrying. So then we go through like the seance situation. I meet all these girls, and 2 of the girls there work with her, and they're talking to me about her, and I'm like, what? And, you know, she's a pretty famous deity, so, like, it's not totally bizarre, whereas, like, the other goddess I was working with was much more, she was more obscure. She's more popular these days. But anyways, and one of the girls that I connected with was like, oh, like, my first experience when I first went with her, blah, 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 and this owl showed up. And I was like, an owl showed up? As far as I knew, she didn't have any relationship with an owl. So that felt more like an alignment with me and the work that I was doing. Again, everything just kept kind of adding up. Like, just, I was running into people that wanted to be death doulas. I was running into people that were working with this goddess. I was finding a goddess that really associated with like death work and death workers. And then I had the seance, which was, if I ever had any doubts in my mind that spirits existed, they were eradicated after that in-person seance. That was the most amped paranormal experience I've ever had in my fucking life. Even my teacher was like, whoa. And even the assistants she had were like, whoa. Like everybody was kind of like, whoa. That was an experience that will go down as one of the craziest experiences of my life. Like 100%. I got so freaked out at one point. I texted Mama Moon and I was like, Ma, I was like, I need protection. And she was like, I'm on it, you know, and she just like was sending me so much love and protection. And I was just like so freaked out. It was amazing. It was amazing. I learned a lot about my abilities and like what my gifts, my strongest gifts are, which ones I kind of don't have at all, like which ones kind of lack. And I also learned that like if I go too hard, I will get excruciating headaches. Yeah, that was cool. Also, maybe sensory deprivation is a little extreme for me because I will like slip into a current of channeling other messages and other people, and I will just floop. Like I literally felt myself, like my mind just go like it just get like taken away. It was absolutely crazy. I like had a blindfold on and like headphones on while people were asking me questions, and I was just like blah, 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 blah. They weren't noise canceling headphones. It was like a radio that was like streaming, and it's called the Estes method, but the actual seance, holy shit, blew my fucking mind. I have your girl, if you watched my videos, you know I have heard some weird shit. The sheer amount of things that happened in one night with a gaggle of women was just bizarre. If you told me my teacher paid for there to be like a bunch of like children or something just all over the house, like hiding from us to do all the things that happen, I would believe you. If you told me my teacher hired a coyote wrangler to go outside and start like just so much crap happened. It was absolutely bizarre. So anyways, that happened. So from the seance, we spent a week up in Colorado, did a bunch of like touristy things, saw Garden of the Gods. It was gorgeous. You know, holidays rolled around. My death Reiki class finally came around. I finished that. It was amazing. Again, I felt even more in alignment with being a death doula and death midwife. We had interviews with other death doulas in that class, and it just felt like something that I really felt called to do and just something I really believed in. And I very much believe that we've handed off working and honoring and ceremonially handling our dead to hospitals and to funeral homes, and like our dead just gets kind of passed from hand to hand with like a bunch of legal documentation, and we just like sign it off. I also feel like a lot of us are under the impression that we have to do that. We don't have to do that. It depends on your state. So there's just legalities and all this stuff that you just don't know about, like fast food of handling death. Here you take the ill and the dying and the sick into the hospital, and then the hospital transfers them to either hospice, so then hospice is taking care of them, or they're just immediately transferred to a funeral home, or then hospice has them and then they pass away and then they immediately transfer them to a funeral home. You know, it's just like hand after hand after hand, document after document after document. And I feel like family members are terrified. I feel like they're bombarded. I feel like they're in an emotionally raw place. They don't really know what to do. They don't feel comfortable asking questions. They might think it's gross. They might think it's weird. They might be scared. It's just treated so shamefully and detached. And so anyways, I'm like getting off on a totally different tangent. I was trying to say rant and tangent at the same time. So yeah, so I take my goddess class, I take my death rites and death Reiki class, and I'm like really excited and can't wait for my death doula course to come up. And then on the winter solstice, we were suddenly shocked to find that Mama Moon was not physically at the same place that she was at the day before. And that led to a bunch of tests and scans, and it came back that she had a mass in her brain. So we took her to the hospital, and from there we found out that she had stage 4 lung cancer that had spread to her brain. That was in December. And then she started taking chemo and radiation. And they were trying to eradicate the brain tumor by just radiation because it was in a sensitive place that directly affected her mobility. And so they did not want to do brain surgery because she was already in a wheelchair. I don't think I've ever really talked about this on my channel, but my mom had a stroke 13 years ago. And so she was wheelchair bound. She was still very strong and very independent and just a very capable human being and very much a fighter. But she lived with me for like food and like doing things around the house and stuff like that, and also just for general safety. She lived with my brother. She lived with me for the first year, and then she moved in with my brother, and then she's lived with me and my husband for the last 3.5 years. She was already wheelchair bound, so the tumor was affecting her non-paralyzed side. So she was completely immobile. And our goal was to shrink or remove the tumor in her brain. And the doctor really thought he'd be able to do that because it was only 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters, which is crazy. The one in her lung, though, was a decent size. And they were like, you know, this is too far gone at this point, but hopefully the chemo will help, you know, keep it at bay. So we did that, and my mom was in the hospital for several months, and then we finally got out and were transferred to like a rehabilitation center. We were there for a couple of weeks when my mom developed a type of pneumonia that was really bad, and they basically told us we'd have to tell her goodbye right then, which was extremely upsetting. But my mom is a beast and she fought it off, and she had like crazy machinery and just so much going on. She just handled it amazingly. She spent one night alone in the hospital the entire time. My brother and I took shifts staying the night with her. We did not want her to be alone or scared. They checked the scans and they saw that the brain tumor had gotten bigger, and so did the lung tumor. So they spoke with us about entering hospice. So we went from hospital to rehab to hospital for several months, and they finally told us that like it wasn't gonna change much. So we took her home. We took her home like a couple days after her birthday, her 67th birthday. Fixed up the house, and my brother moved in, and my brother and me and my husband took care of my mom. I graduated my death midwife class in the middle of all of that, and I was able to use a lot of what I learned to help my mom. You know, my teacher made a comment about my mom initiating me into being a death worker. I'm grateful for it now, but when it happened, I was really bitter. When we got the diagnosis, I was really bitter. Like, you cannot tell me that I've been led to be a death worker because of my mom. And it just made me think back to like when I got my acceptance letter, and I just cried and cried and cried and told my mom I feel like something big is gonna happen. It felt like a cosmic joke. You know, like the universe was laughing at me. Like, you want to be a death worker? Here's your mom. But once I got less angry, I realized that, holy crap, I'm so glad that I had taken all of my courses. I was able to really view it as a more beautiful, not something to be afraid of. My husband, he broke down crying after my mom's funeral. And I was like, why are you crying? Like, what's, like, I knew he was sad. It was like a really intense cry. And I was just like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And he said that what I did for my family, like for my nieces and my nephews, and in making it not as scary, and like, you know, we painted my mom's cremation casket, we laid her in honor, and we wrapped her with like silk, and we decorated her with flowers, and we wrote little letters to her. And my niece and my nephew were very hands-on, and we all talked to my mom and had a lot of rituals planned up. It was just, I very much wanted it to feel beautiful and like okay to cry. I decided to write letters because I knew my nephew was like holding on to a lot of things that he wanted to say to my mom. They were very close, like maybe even just like an I love you, like I love you so much. But he's having a hard time expressing that. My niece was very like skittish of the whole situation until I busted out the glitter acrylic paint, was like, let's paint Gia's cremation casket, baby girl. You know, and so we had a really good time. And anyways, so my husband was like, you know, I wish I would have had something like that. And he was like, you're a great death midwife. And I'm like, oh, thank you. But also, like, while taking care of my mom, there were things that hospice wanted to do. Our hospice nurse was phenomenal. I had a lot of information from my death midwife courses about like all the legalities, the ceremonies, all of the spiritual aspects. There were things that my mom involuntarily started doing that I was like already aware of. I was able to help my brother and be like, this is normal, this is what happens, this doesn't hurt her, this is okay, or like, we need to do this now. I was very much prepared, and way more prepared had I not taken those classes. Like, there were some things with my mom that had happened that if I had not expected it to happen or had known or been prepared, I would have just been traumatized. Like, just straight traumatized. Like, I just would have been like, oh my God. It hurts me to know that there's so many people out there that are having needless trauma, needless fear, needless anxiety, needless what the fuck is going on. We just need to talk. Like, we just need to talk. We just need to kind of take ownership of what dying looks like. Like, we have really shunned it. Anyways, I'm not here to like preach about I obviously enjoyed my death midwife class. My teacher does have a distinct difference between a death doula and a death midwife. So the death doula is leading up to the dying, the death midwife is after the last breath. I'm all the way, so I'm like both death doula, death midwife. That has been my journey, and it's now been, as of today, I keep looking at my mom's altar, which is right here. As of today, it has been 2 months since my mom has passed. I cry every day. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. Like, it haunts me, you know, like it's something that I think about all the time. It's something, there are echoes of her everywhere. And I think with time, I'm going to love those, and I'm going to be so grateful to have them. If you're a friend, you know I've said this a million times. Like, I just had no idea just how intertwined my mother and I were, or are. I see her in everything. I hear her. I think of her. There's not a thing I can do where I don't think of her. We've become so close. You know, growing up, we were like oil and water. But she became my best friend. I'll miss her so much. I know that she's still with me. We talked about like signs and stuff, like what would be her sign. And we're moving houses. We have to buy a new house. One of her signs is a specific type of bird. And I literally went so long without ever fucking seeing this bird. And every time we go tour a house, that bird shows up and I'm just like, she's there. We did have a really creepy experience where like my husband actually got scared. I was like, what was that? And he was like, I don't know, baby, it was this. And I was like, you know, logically that does not make sense. He was like, what do you want me to say, honey? It's fucking ghosts. And I was like, yes, I want you to say it's ghosts. And he was like, I will never say it's ghosts. I don't think that experience was Mama Moon, because if it was you, Mom, you scared the fucking shit out of my husband and myself. We literally thought someone broke into our house. She's with me. She's with me all the time. I will carry her with me always. I will. I wrote like a little poem on Instagram and I feel like it's so fitting. Like I hear my mom every day in my laugh. I laugh just like her. Like I see her in my eyes. We have the exact same eyes. I'm also starting to see the resemblance in my face now that I'm getting older. Definitely look more and more like her. We have the exact same skin texture, which is like super weird, but like literally I can touch my skin and be like, yep, that's Mom. Like we have so many similarities. We are connected. And then on top of that, spiritually, I do believe that she is going to be watching over me and my strongest ancestor guide. 100%. She was always my number one here. I know she's gonna be my number one on the other side. So that was it. That's where I've been. I hope you guys are well. Tell your loved ones you love them. And yeah, just be safe out there, everybody. Okay. Goodbye, guys. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Goodbye.